Episode 12, Fireside Chat with David Spinrad, the Rated Rabbi, Part 2. What do you think so far? Pretty good, I hope. This is episode 12, the second part of my chat with David Spinrad, the Rated Rabbi, with the last one being episode 11. And I confirmed with Google, yes, this is indeed how numbers work. Dave is just so easy to talk to. I mean, I guess that just goes with being a spiritual leader, being able to connect with people from all walks of life. And he's just such a good person in and out of the hobby. And he has many hats he wears. And that's why he's in the hobby. Because in one of his podcast episodes, he talks about why he got into the hobby, about how as a middle-aged man, he felt like he was a good father, good husband, good rabbi, but that there was no Dave time, no him time for you, no me time, right? And so just wasn't time for him to feel like himself, is what he says. And that just goes to having a hobby and connecting with himself, right? We can all find different hobbies to have our time, our me time, I mean. And he loves to say, and I've heard him say this so many times, but I love it every time. He loves to say what we all end up collecting in the end is ourselves. And I just love that so much. And I think he does say that in this. Maybe he said it in the first half. He definitely says it by the time of the end of our chat. So the hats, right? I find myself grappling with wearing the many hats, and with trying to get this podcast off the ground, I do find myself wearing other hats less often. And I mean in the hobby, because the hats outside of my life, those have to stay. Those are non-negotiables. But I will very much admit to myself and to you all listeners that I've pretty much dropped the ball on selling on eBay, consigning, subbing for grading, custom card art, which I haven't gotten to yet. And I've really enjoyed doing that in the past. But it's just I find myself, spending a lot of time with this podcast, which I really enjoy, and I hope that I continue to enjoy it. But I've also had less time to consume content, which I definitely try to listen to as much as I can, because there's, again, so many good podcasts out there for the hobby. And also, I've definitely slowed down the buying, which is probably the best thing, to be honest. But there's only so much time in the day, so much hobby time, if this isn't your full time gig, if you're not an industry insider, or if you don't own a card shop. And I've said this when I was a guest on Rob Gerard's Sport Card Therapist podcast, one of my favorite of all time, one of the first ones I listened to, one of the ones I binged and I learned so much from. And what I said in his collectors roundtable is that time is the ultimate equalizer. You can be the poorest or richest person in the world, and we all have the same 24 hours in a day. We all have the same time budget, if you will. And I still want to strike a healthy balance with life, family, friends, the hobby, and yeah, I guess work too, but and maybe it's in that order, right? But that's a question I posed to Dave at the end of near the end of our chat, which again, this is part two, and that is, does being in the hobby make you a better parent? And that's what I wanted to make a chapter out of in this card diary, like parenting your collection, parenting in the hobby. But now I'm thinking maybe it doesn't have to be a monologue episode, because ultimately we are going to take care of our collections the best as we can. We will all eventually learn about vaulting, insuring your cards, protecting your slabs and cards like Slab Strong and Slab Mags along the way. I thought about it. I could do a monologue chapter episode, but I'm wondering if I can even fill 30 minutes on it. I mean, okay, I know I could. I just don't know if it would be a good 30 minutes on it. I just don't know if it would be interesting. So that's all to say. I'm going to weave in guests who are in the hobby, who are experts in vaulting, protecting slabs, maybe not insurance. I don't know. We'll see. But I also don't want this to become an infomercial, because I don't think that any of you are here to listen to people selling their wares and services to you. And so what I would like to do is have people on from those areas, maybe just to get to know them more. I mean, I already know some of them, but for all of you to get to know them more, and for all of us to, learn something along the way. So my idea or plan to have this chapter called parenting your collection or parenting in the hobby. And it definitely came from Father's Day having just passed, but that idea is gone. This intro and the intro to episode 11, basically, it's the super short version of that. Besides, I don't know, who wants to be told how to parent? Who wants to be, who wants to be told how to parent your collection? Much like no one wants to be told how to parent your kids. But of course, I'm not telling anyone how to do any of these things, just my personal experience and the experiences from guests. But I think that's why I bristle when big voices in the hobby tell people what they should or shouldn't do with, big red alert signage. Okay, forget it. I'm not gonna get into all that. I thought about it, but I'm going down a path I shouldn't go down to. Let's focus on the fun. But yeah, I'll be at Natty, which is what I like to call National, I guess. Just a fun way to say it. I hope to be seeing a lot of you there, listeners to this podcast, followers on Instagram, and let's face it, I follow you too. I listen to your podcasts if you have them. But again, I just haven't found myself able to listen to as many as I've have in the past or as I've wanted to because of creating my own content. So speaking of content and this podcast, sometimes I just run out of breath and I just have to pause. And it really is more the monologue episodes. Yeah, I think it's because I just keep talking continuously. With the fireside chats, it's I talk and then I don't. So this podcast going forward, I do plan to finish this book, if you will, this audiobook or the car diary. Plan to have chapters. And yet, I do want to maintain some flexibility because as a newer podcast, if I have guests who are ready to talk, I have to cater to them. I mean, I do. I have no leverage whatsoever. Um, Not that I have to either. I want to. I want to cater to the times and availabilities of my guests because I think that's just part of being a good host. Even if I did have leverage, I want to be a good host. I want to make my guests feel comfortable, and part of that is catering to their needs and wants and their schedules. So, the next two episodes after this one will be my conversation with Jason Hickey, the Triple Logo Man. I think we ended up deciding that, or we're gonna be calling the nickname is gonna be Logo Bro, which is just awesome because the him and the two others who pulled it together, they call themselves the Logo Bros, which I think is just so awesome. And so it's gonna be two back-to-back not interview, chat guest episodes. So that's 4 episodes in a row because I have to cut up, hour and a half into 2 digestible chunks. And then I may even do some more chat interviews, more fireside chat guests. Oh, why do I keep saying interviews? Maybe they are interviews. I don't know. Maybe I'm just words do mean things, but I do like to think that they are more chats than direct Q&A. But when it comes to the podcast format, I want to bake in that flexibility so that we can have as many conversations with these great industry people in the industry, experts in their fields. So maybe I do have on someone to talk about vaulting or protecting your slabs after my conversation with Jason Hickey, and and then we return back to the chapter monologue episodes. But I don't know when that's going to be. I honestly don't know. But I think that's the fun of all of this. At least it is to me. So I've gone longer than I wanted to because I was kind of stumbling along the way, which is fine. Just get the reps in. Just get it out, and then gotta press publish. I'm not gonna edit any of this. I'm not editing my stumbles during this. Maybe I'll get better at editing in the future, but for now, this will have to do. So without further ado, and yes, that did rhyme. Part two. Ooh, that rhymed. Further ado, part two of my chat with the rated rabbi. Enjoy. All right, so I think we're back. There was a little bit of a technical issue, but it was a perfect stopping point in terms of we were getting to a new topic. And I don't know anyone else in the hobby who has mentioned this phrase and term. And so I think if it is something that's spoken about in the hobby, all the credit should go to you, the rated rabbi. Dave, please tell me this awesome idea of the nightstand card.
Yeah. So, we were talking earlier about how much hobbying involves patience, right? And there's different ends of the continuum on patience. There is sometimes when you just like, it's 10:38 on a Sunday night and you're bidding on some cards you kind of want. You're like looking at it on your phone without your glasses, like, but you gotta have a card. I need a fix. There's that, right? And that, I call that end of the patience continuum. When you get a card like that in the mail, I call that that's a marshmallow card. Remember that thing they did with kids? Like, you can have one marshmallow now, but if you wait, you can have 2 marshmallows, right? So the 1 marshmallow cards are those cards you get and like, just scratching an itch, and you look at it for a little while, maybe feel like, maybe a little regret. Definitely isn't one you're super excited to like put pictures up on social. We all have those cards in our collection.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one. That's a marshmallow. The other end of the continuum, that's a nightstand card, right? A nightstand card is a card, you're waiting for that mail day, you're tracking it, you're going on, if it's, FedEx, you're like, oh, it's at Deerfield or wherever it is when it's on its way to you, like, oh, it's out for delivery, those days, right? Man,
yes.
And my mail doesn't come to the end of the day, sometimes till 5:30. Oh, there's the card, gets there and you open it, right? Everyone has I go right in the kitchen, take the little scissors, super careful on the end, open it up, and there it is. And it's a nightstand card. But before it's a nightstand card, it's a walk around the house card. It's a take it downstairs for a photo shoot, send pictures to your friends, take it to the dinner table. I don't take cards to the bathroom. I feel like maybe that crosses a line. But I take it to the dinner table, right? Like doing the dishes. I got it propped up next to me on the sink. And then I take it to bed at night, right? And I'm lying in bed. Instead of reading, I've got the card. What exactly I'm talking about. Looking at the card, reading the back for the 800th time. Just like, I can't believe I have this card. You're holding the card, right? Give my wife a good night kiss, but take one more long look at the card, put it on my nightstand very carefully, so when I wake up, I can see it first thing in the morning. Dennis, I have a nightstand card in my hand. I featured this nightstand card tonight. I recorded episode 24 of the Rated Rabbi Sports Card Podcast. It's about the 80 card master set of the 84 All-Star game. The 80th card was when the camera caught Joe DiMaggio in the seats in the bottom of the first inning, and I have a 1948 Leaf Joe DiMaggio. And my friend, this is definitely a top 5 card in my collection. This is an absolute nightstand card. In fact, I might take Joe to bed with me tonight. I mean, this is good. So this is a great example also, though, of why like for vintage, you can't pay attention to grades. This is an incredible. This 48 set has horrible registration. It's like that 4-color layer, super blurry. Look how crisp and clear that card is. This card has terrible centering. Look at the centering on that card, but look at the grade.
Can you show us closer? Can you show the video closer?
Yeah. PSA 1.5.
How is that a 1.5? That's wild.
Because in the bottom corner, so bottom left-hand corner, there's a little crease.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of schmutz above it that you can see. And you can't really see it unless you have a big mag lamp, it's like 40x crazy mag lamps.
Yep.
There is a very, very, very thin hairline crease. You can't see it. You cannot see unless you have so for vintage cards, you just can't really pay attention to technical grades.
Gotcha.
And you'll pay more for this card than you will for some cards that are 2.5 or even an ugly 3, right? So this is a nightstand card, and fewer and better. This is the kind of card I want in my collection.
Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. So no ugly cards go to the nightstand. None. We're talking the beautiful cards.
No. Only the very few I take to bed with me at night.
That's awesome. I love it. I remember when you told me this concept during our walks, and I was like, I want to have you on. I got to figure out how. And I was like, we got to talk about this one. So that is so awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I can't wait for our wonderful. Like I think maybe I'm having too many expectations or high expectations for a national, but I'm really looking forward to a great good time there. And I hope you find your want list cards. You mentioned one. I don't know if you want to mention another one.
Yeah, well, I'm working on the maze run, so I've got some of them.
You have
After
a
the
good name
52
for it. I'm
tops.
sorry. Yeah, I didn't want to. Sorry
Oh
to cut you
yeah,
off, but it's 23 for like it's the year 2023, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
do
yeah,
you
yeah.
want to? Because you have some amazing runs ending this year, but like what do
Yeah.
you call this run again?
I don't really have a name for it
20,
because
23 or 23?
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, but Willie Mays' number was 24.
20. I got it mixed up because of Jordan. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
that's all right.
23 for 24. Isn't that
Yeah,
isn't that what
20,
you call
yeah,
it? I'm so
23
sorry.
for 24. And I
Yeah.
would say percentage wise that the vast majority of my hobby dollars have gone towards Maze this
Mm-hmm.
year. Um, But I've been looking for a little Joey Bosa fun. Like I said, like the ultra modern, the vibe is great. It's a way more of a party. Vintage, right? The more
Yeah.
more distinguished,
Mm-hmm.
deeper wisdom. Like there's lots of good stuff going
Yeah.
on, but you're way more likely to have a vodka and Red Bull over in the ultra modern section of the party, right? So that's also
Love
fun.
it.
I wouldn't spend real money. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I really think I can get a I just picked up a 2020 select gold field level out of 10 of Bosa. Definitely under $100. I forgot what I
Mm-hmm.
spent. So like it's not nothing, but at the same time, when it goes down, my favorite player on my favorite team plays my favorite position. I also like being an outlier. Like I'm collecting a defensive player, darn it. It's fun to
Mm-hmm.
me. I don't
Right.
care.
Because they're so maligned like pitchers and right
Yeah.
goalkeepers in
Yeah.
soccer. So
Yeah.
Bosa, I get that, and you are definitely a Bay Area kid, kid adult, and all that stuff. You've heard me in podcasts do this, and I got
Yeah.
to do it with you.
Yeah.
Maze, why Maze? Take
Yeah.
me back to when you're a child. I mean, you
Yeah.
didn't. I mean, just tell me what Maze means to you.
Yeah. Well, my dad was a huge Willie Mays fan. The greatest giant of all time. Some say the greatest baseball player of all time. Just
Mm,
this larger than life figure in Giants history and Bay Area history.
mhm,
It's a nice connection to my dad. And the thing is, as I got into vintage I think it was last summer, I was listening to this really cool Willie Mays biography as I was walking and listened to the whole thing. I'm actually listening to it a second time just to kind of get myself back in the national state of mind as
mhm,
I'm walking. And I started realizing why would I have any other card as a Giants fan, as a Mays fan? Why would I have another, say, 1954 tops before I had the Willie Mays, right? Just
mm,
to have an example of each one, it's got to be Mays. And actually, what it ends up being is because there's such subtlety in vintage collecting. One of the coolest ways to learn how to collect vintage is to collect a player. Because you learn about sets that way. You learn about what good examples look like, and these lessons they translate to other cards as well. Then it's just figuring out what's the variety. Oh, what are common things on a 56 Koufax, for example? Once you learn by learning one card, then
mm,
it applies to all cards. So I've just learned a ton about vintage collecting Willie Mays. So lots of just a
okay.
great way to hobby, connects me to my dad, connects me to my favorite team. Yeah.
Do you remember your first impressions or reactions? Like the one play that I know of Willie Mays is when he had that over the shoulder catch and throw where his hat just pops off, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Um, do you remember? I mean, you of course you remember that or you've seen it, but
Yeah, yeah.
like tell me about that moment, what that meant to you, or
Well, I was negative 16 years old when
there you
Willie
go.
made that catch.
Okay.
My dad was 8, so it's like far before anything in my life or my dad's. They were in New York at the time, but he's just such an iconic player. Um, he was a 5-tool player before there was such a name for it. Could
Mm-hmm,
hit for power, run, played great defense, had a cannon arm, like
mm-hmm.
did it all. Um,
Interesting.
uh,
So
um,
I know you and I are old, and you're a little bit older than I, but I knew. Let me just say, I knew you didn't watch it live. I didn't mean that. I meant like when you saw the first time that highlights. Did that like
yeah,
was it like your dad saying, "Hey, son, watch this play. Like this is
yeah,
why I love this guy so much." Oh my gosh, this is how bad I am. He is the say hey kid, right?
yes,
Thank you. Oh gosh, thank
yes.
goodness. This is being recorded, and if I got that wrong, that would have been so embarrassing.
That's right.
So I don't know much about Mays, but I know.
Uh-huh.
I guess I know the nickname, and I know that play.
Yeah.
And his hat did like
Yeah,
fly
yeah.
off his head, right?
He used to wear his hat as like a size too small, and he kind of put it on his head so when he run, he would fly off. And a lot of the way he played, when Willie Mays was a sophomore in high school, he was
Hmm.
playing a sophomore, 15 years old.
Yeah.
He was actually playing for the Birmingham Black Barons. He's from Fairfield, Alabama, which is near Birmingham. And he played in the Negro Leagues when he was like a sophomore and a junior and a senior. He actually lost his eligibility because he was playing professional baseball.
What? How do I know? I mean, I thank you for sharing that. I had no clue. I did not know any of that. Um, so again,
Yeah, there you go.
I'm
I
showing
hear you.
I'm showing my age or my
Yeah,
naivete here.
yeah,
The opposite of showing my age. So Jackie Robinson.
yep,
I know there was like Jackie Robinson Day recently. Recording
yeah,
this on
yep,
Juneteenth, on June
yep,
19th.
yep,
Jackie Robinson was the one who broke the color barrier,
yeah,
but Mays. I mean, we're talking deep South Alabama,
yeah, yeah,
Birmingham, and
yeah,
he is going through his baseball journey.
yeah,
And I don't know. I'm just trying to piece together. Like I don't even have a question. I'm just kind of like I'm in
yeah,
awe of that time period. I mean, we're talking pre-civil rights, right?
yeah. I mean, Jackie breaks in 47.
27. Wow.
Um,
Okay.
what's interesting there were a lot of debates who should have been the best, who should have been the first player, right? And Jackie
Mm.
was not the best player in the Negro Leagues,
Hmm.
but it wasn't just the best player. It was more complicated than that. It was someone who could withstand what he had to withstand. I think that was a significant part. I think also like there were certain things about Jackie Robinson being not from the South, but being from Pasadena, having gone to college, having served in the military. I think there was sort of what do they call it? Not, I wouldn't necessarily say it would be respectability politics kind of thing, but there were certain things, right, that made his path made him more the clear choice for Branch Rickey. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
That is I learn something new every day in the hobby. And when it comes to vintage and this, like, thank you. I mean, it's probably
yeah,
information a lot of vintage collectors already know and love and revere, but again,
yeah.
I'm just so not a vintage collector.
That's
uh
all.
but we talked about let me go a little bit peeled behind the curtain here. When
Yeah,
we were talking about scheduling the chat for today, it's going to be after Father's Day. I said, other days this week were I may be a little bit more tied up. Same with you.
yeah,
You have a podcast. You just released an audio, an episode. I'm sorry,
yeah.
and I definitely want to talk about that before we end. But
Okay,
I know that we talked about it. Oh, what a coincidence! It's today's gonna be Juneteenth, and here's a white rabbi and then a Korean Asian American here. Neither of us are African American. But and I did ask you, is it okay if we talk about this? And you said yes,
sure.
but we're not going to
Yeah,
talk.
yeah.
We're not going to say names because
Okay.
it's very important to
Yeah,
keep our family lives private. But you do have a child um, of African American descent, or I
yeah,
don't know if that's the way to
yeah,
put it,
yeah,
but you are someone who I know I walk past your house and drive past the house. You have the Black Lives Matter flag, and I just we didn't even talk about the details of uh, have this conversation, but we're just talking about Mays and Jackie, and you're a rabbi, and you're like such a spiritual, strong, introspective, kind, and
Thank
generous
you.
person. And I wanted to kind of talk about the importance of today a little bit, mainly in the way that oh no, my audio just went out.
I'm there. I'm
Is
here,
that
mainly in the way.
is it is this StreamYard telling us let's not broach this topic? Let's try. But
Okay.
I don't want to get canceled. You don't want to get canceled. Let's do our best to maybe just talk a little bit about it. And I will just kind of share my perspective of things. And I want to hear more from you, of course, is as an Asian American, I do find myself kind of like on the sidelines of the American part. Every country has its race issues and race problems and histories, but my people, right, my Korean, we've been colonized by
Yeah.
China and Japan in the past, but we, when it comes to the sordid history of America, like my people did not enslave and were Chinese people helped build the railroads, as we hear about a lot and we know about. So I do find myself kind of like unsure of how to enter the fray, and when there were some comments made in the hobby that really upset some people, and there were kind of like, I don't know, sides or factions starting, like I didn't really know what to do because
Yeah.
one, I have a small voice. It's not like no one comes to me saying, "Oh, what's your take on this?" I was just reading, I was learning, I was absorbing, I was trying to figure out what's going on. But we do have a hobby that has historically been pretty um, white male centric, right? And I think I'm of the strong belief that in order to grow the hobby, we do need to be more inclusive, and regardless of your politics, because I know so much of this can get politicized, and I'm not here to get on a soapbox and talk about politics, but it's just about, even from a dollars and cents standpoint, it just makes sense to get more diversity into the hobby. So Juneteenth, race, America, hobby, please talk to me.
Oh, yes. So yeah, we are a multiracial family. One of our children is white and the other child is black. And we go through the world as a family that has more diversity than maybe some other families. And it's a beautiful way to go through the world. And it's also, not without its own complexities and its challenges. And, Judah and I were talking just today. Hi, there's his name.
I'll bleep it out or something. I'll figure it
Okay.
out. Something.
All right. So my son and I were just talking today about Juneteenth and making African American history a part of American history. I think is actually really important.
Mm,
Right? I remember Morgan Freeman. Remember that guy? Morgan Freeman,
of
that
course.
great voice.
Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank, right? Shawshank, right? Morgan Freeman, Shawshank.
Yeah.
So Morgan Freeman, a long time ago, was on 60 Minutes, and I remember him in an interview saying, like, being very against Black History Month.
Wow.
He said, "Yeah, he said Black history is American history. I don't want a month. I want it to be all the time. I want it to be part of woven into the fabric of our society and our culture." And I'm like, that's really dope. And it's important to have it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I really like. So Judah and I, my son and I, we're talking.
I don't know how to bleep. I don't know how
It's
to
okay.
edit. You
I'll
might have to
tell
be
you.
okay with his name out there.
Listen, man, I'm a rabbi. Like, I'm a public figure. I'm very easy to find. My children's names are known. My wife's name is known. Like, I don't enjoy anonymity in my profession. It's just not what it is, and it's okay.
Okay.
So
All
we're
right.
talking about Juneteenth tonight. We were getting some dinner together. We were talking about what it is and why it matters, and how come it took so long to get from the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 till it was read in Galveston today, June 19th, 1865. Trying to understand the whys behind that. Now, we'll talk about diversity in the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
That is an interesting conversation, right? There's a lot of ways we can go with it. I think one way to think about it is you need money to collect cards.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a serious wealth gap in this country, not just economic inequality, but generational wealth, that
Mm.
kind of gap, right? That is part of the system. And I'm not on any soapbox, but until what is it that the average black family has 1/12 what the average white family has in accrued family wealth. It's a tiny fraction. So going and spending big money on cards isn't I don't think it's gonna there's not gonna be a lot of racial diversity until there's like more economic equality in this country. Um, and that's not just for African Americans, also for Hispanics and lots of other minorities, and also people who are white who haven't really enjoyed economic booms in their own lives either. Like I think about this 10x thing and like, are people really going to get super psyched to get score football cards long term when they see
Mm.
the bling? I don't know. Like I don't know if this thing is 10xable.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So score, being very, I love the specificity, and there's a lot that I want to say, but focusing on that last word or phrase.
Yeah.
So you would associate score as a lower end product where it is kind of like junk wax e.
I mean, it's fun. It's fun. It's great to get for little kids,
Yeah.
right? But you start to, once you see the good stuff, it's hard to stay connected to score. And I don't even
Yeah.
mean the good stuff like NT and flawless. I mean even the prism,
The mid tier prison.
the
Yeah. Okay.
mid-tier stuff,
So the reason I say that is, my second guest ever, Brian Pirrup, we were talking about, junk wax eras, and are we in a junk wax era 2.0 and all this, and he said, like, paraphrasing, like, what's so wrong about that, and
Yeah.
um oh no, our audio again.
We're back. We're back.
Okay,
I'm
we're
good.
back. So it makes me wonder, like, do we need different price points, different um do we need diversity in the cardboard? And I'm not even talking about the athletes on the cardboard, but just like diversity in price points. And I guess historically there have always been collector's choice and flair showcase, and but I guess in vintage it's always been just that one or two sets, right? Just tops
Right.
or just Bowman. But yeah, it's just, I don't even know where I'm going with this because it's such a important topic, and I think it's just important for folks like you and me and other people to just start the conversation. I don't think we're going to solve anything today. I don't think we're going to um you know maybe we advance the ball a little bit, but I think it is important that it's not so taboo. And that's why when we said, oh, what a coincidence we might be recording on Juneteenth, I was like, should we maybe talk about this? But there was no talking points, there was
No.
no
No.
set questions or back and forth. It's kind of like you and I just walking our dogs in the morning.
Are we
Where
in a
we
junk? Are we in a junk wax period? Are we in a junk slab age? What
Oh
are we?
yeah.
Talk to me.
Well, I mean, so many color parallels. We just talked about 22 select football with an extra sweet level, right? Another level of
Yeah.
cards. And
Yeah.
um I mean, to bring it full circle about, me breaking this over this weekend and pulling a what I thought was such a unique card. And here I'm breaking my evergreen part, but I pulled a one of one 22 select football Desmond Ritter Nike swoosh red background. And then 2 days later, literally today, June 19th, um, let's just say it, Backyard Breaks pulls a 2022 select football Desmond Ritter one of one Nike swoosh red pack. And I get there's so many different one of ones, and I know it's a different card. It was like finite or premium or whatever it was called. But in my head, I'm like, one, it is so recent. I pulled it first, and like, wait, what the heck? Like, here's another one just like it. But then two, I'm it doesn't take away from the enjoyment of that moment that I had, but
Mm,
it's just like, how many one-on-ones? I know Cage Lawyer has talked about how many logo men there are in Flawless, which, by the
yeah.
way, is a product that came out after the entirety of a second year of these rookies was played. The season was over,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So are we in a Junk Wax era 2.0? I mean, I don't see how we're not. And then we'll see how Fanatics goes about things too. And then Junk Slabs, I mean, as a newer entrant in the hobby, when I was buying on Whatnot a lot, I remember being addicted to Whatnot when I first started back into the hobby. And
Mhm.
you were like, patience, patience, grasshopper. Just take a moment. Don't nothing good happens after 2 a.m. at the at the bar or on Whatnot. And it's just like, oh, I got a $20 card for $3. And then you're like, is that worth your time though? Like, think about it. Like, is that
Yeah.
really worth your time? And I was like, now I know, but at the time I was like, oh my gosh, like I can make $17, not thinking about shipping, taxes, fees, and all that. So
Yeah.
I gotta say, Junk Slabs, I've definitely bought them. I don't think people have to have a gateway and like I I think a lot of people when they first get back into the hobby, especially recently, it's like you almost feel like, oh look, it's a PSA 10, say let's just say Zion Hoops rookie, base. It's like,
Right.
oh, that's like a $40 card. Now it's like not as much because it's Zion, but it's almost like, does it have to be a rite of passage for someone to go through junk, high high PSA graded base rookie cards, even if it's Prism rookie cards, like no color, no silver, just base.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I would like to think that people who are newer entrants in the hobby will be smarter and not do that. But we know those slabs are circulated around in shows on streams, and it isn't. I wouldn't even say it's hot potato because they're not so expensive that people have to like feel like they have to jump off of it. But they're going to be circulated, and I cannot
Yeah.
remember who said it, but I remember someone said someone just needs to buy 50,000 of these junk slabs and just throw them into the ocean like the Mickey Mantle rookie cards, from back in the day when they said they just threw them into the ocean. But other if you don't do that, they're just going to be constantly transacted on, I guess. Those are the highly transacted cards. You just will never get rid of them. And when I think about the final thing I'll say, because I've been rambling
Yeah.
here, is
Yeah.
when I think about when I was a kid and I would seek out my hero worshiping cards, the Jordans or the Gary Paytons or Kevin Garnett's or whatever, it would be I guess those are the players now. Like I don't want to hold disdain for young collectors who are chasing like the Zions and Lamellos because they're the flashy, ones who had a lot of
Yeah.
hype, and
Sure.
they may look back at, well, I don't think either of those two are going to have careers like, the greats from the 90s, but the people who are doing so well now are going to be their Jordans. I mean, that's why when it comes to the Jordan LeBron debate, it's such a generational debate. I mean, everyone over the age of 35 is going to say Jordan. Everyone or most people under the age of 35 are going to say LeBron because that's just kind of what we grew up with.
Sure.
So I've been
It's fun
talking
to
too
debate it.
much.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
It's fun to debate it. I definitely think we are in a junk product era, the magnitude of which we will only recognize when we look back at this time. I remember when I first got back into the hobby and I reached out to my buddy Adam, who really more or less continuously collected over the years. And we were saying, like, how can all of these things, all these cards, all be worth this much money? And I just think they can't be. And I went back and looked at my cards. It was great getting back in as I looked at my cards. And I really got out of collecting like just before Junk Wax was starting. So the last cards in my binders were like 89, 90. I remember I pulled a Frank Thomas 90, was that 90 or 91 Leaf rookie. That
Mm-hmm.
was like a great pack. Um, and it's like a time capsule for prospects.
Mm.
I won't even bore you with the names, but think of all the prospects nowadays. There were those guys 30 years ago that there was tons of production.
Mm.
think there was less production than there is now, right? Because
Mm.
then it was for first it was Topps and Flair and Donruss, but then
Mhm.
Upper Deck and all the other ones came out as well. But even
Mhm.
in the 80s, it was high production. Let's call it just very vertical, right? In terms of
Mhm.
numbers, right? A few sets, super mass produced. I think when we look back, we're going to see more cards were produced, but just horizontally. I
Mm.
think about all the different sets. I think we're going to end up seeing more cards. Not only junk wax, I think we're going to have junk autos, junk
Mhm.
patches. I
Mhm.
mean, and since so much is coming out year after year after year after year, right? Imagine, think of the value boxes now, and they haven't even caught up like 2021, 22 for
Mm.
stuff that's like, this guy didn't hit. And now add 5 more years to that. I honestly, I think this stuff's gonna be worth very, very little. I'm not like super crazy Pareto effect. Like, what's that guy, Brent, Deep Value Investor?
Ah.
He knows his stuff. Different perspective on some things in terms of some of the perspectives on vintage, but he definitely is, 99.9% of the cards are worthless and 1/10 of 1% hold most of the value, right? Like, I get
So
it. Yeah.
that's a spin on the Pareto principle, right? So just I know you and I've
An
talked about it on the walk.
extreme version. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you want to explain that a
Yeah.
little bit, like
Just
the
as,
80-20?
yeah. I mean, I feel like 80/20 is something you can apply at lots of different parts in your life, right? Like 20% of your work is going to give you 80% of your results, right? 20% of my congregants are going to give me 80% of my headaches, right? It's like, that's
Hope they're
life.
not listening to
No,
this.
I know. I love you people, but it's,
Yes.
listen, serving the Jewish people, it comes with its headaches. So,
Do we? I
yeah,
feel like I have to have you on to talk more about the application of like religion with the
sure.
cult of cards or religion of cards.
Oh, yeah.
But I definitely before we end because
Yeah.
we've been going we go on some long walks, y'all. um, I want you to tell us. I know a lot about your podcast and I've listened to it, and I really there's some things that I actually after this I want to clip to kind of tease your appearance on this, but
Sure.
there's so many good sound bites. But tell folks about your podcast.
Yeah.
Um, I've seen it. You and I have talked about it before its launch. You and I have talked about this podcast before its launch,
Yeah.
and you've been so
Yeah.
supportive
Yeah.
along the way. So, but this is your time to kind of do the very long elevator pitch, like we're going to the Sears Tower. So it doesn't have to be 60 seconds, but I just want you to kind of like give us the overview of the podcast.
Sure. So it's the Rated Rabbi Sports Card Podcast. The subtitle is Where Sports Cards and Pop Culture Meet the 1984 All-Star Game, right? So I have a crystal clear mission statement. I know exactly, like, that's my focus. Sports cards, pop culture, 1984 All-Star Game. Everything I do has to somehow intersect that moment in time through those two channels. I went to the 84 All-Star Game with my dad and my brother at Candlestick. It was a great memory of my childhood. So when I got back into collecting, I want to have a great collection. But I get to define what a great collection is for me, just like you do, just like all of us do. So a great collection has to be meaningful, has to be personal, and it has to be something no one else can do. And if they do it, they're copying me, right? No one else has an 80 card master set of the 1984 All-Star Game. And no one else can do a podcast about sports cards, pop culture, in the 84 game. So it's very specific, very reflective, tons of nostalgia. And I just finished episode 24. So far, I've gotten through the first inning. It's just all about digressions. It's all just about going down rabbit holes and
Mm-hmm.
exploring memories and bringing things together and talking about life. And it's a ton of fun. I try to do it. I do it twice a week on Mondays and Fridays is when I release episodes. Each one's about 25 to 30 minutes. Try not to go too long because that's about my attention span when I'm listening to a pod.
Mm-hmm.
Not like this one, buddy. We've gone long tonight.
Yeah,
And that's it. Yeah, I love
I
it.
the amount of I mean, but that's life, right? Isn't life the details, the
Yeah,
tangents, the side talk?
tangents, yeah.
Yeah, it's that's what it's about. I mean, did we go long? Yes, but I hope that people are chopping this up into, whatever chores or running or driving that they're doing. But hey, it's like I say to a lot of people, if you want a refund, if you want your time back, I guess your money, you can't get the time back, but I'll definitely give you a refund if you didn't like the podcast. But no, I am so appreciative of our friendship and that you launched a podcast. It really spurred me to want to try to give it a shot. You've heard me talk about this whole Hobby S. Thompson angle because
Awesome.
I just wanted to do something different. I consume so many podcasts. I love the medium, and it's just in a way, just wanted to make something that was different, or at least I think is different, so that someone like me could enjoy it, I guess.
Awesome. I love
But
seeing you have fun, man. Your joy
man,
brings me joy.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
You've said that to me before, and I got to say the same thing to you. We're gonna have such an awesome time in National, which I always just keep liking saying Natty, so it's like a little insidery thing for us. But we are gonna have separate. So in this Airbnb, we are gonna have separate sleeping arrangements. We're not sleeping in the same bed, I don't think.
No, I'm bringing Joe DiMaggio to bed, man.
Yeah, way to bring it full circle. Oh man, but you're not transacting that card. You're bringing it for the
No, I'm
looks.
not. I'm not bringing it. I
Oh, you're
I
not
don't
bringing
bring
it.
anything that I'm afraid if I bring something like that, I might end up in a trade for 33 Gaudy Babe Ruth, and so
Oh my gosh.
that's a grail card for me. In fact, I'm already starting to think after I get over the Mays hump, I'm thinking about spending all of 2024 and not buying anything except saving up to buy card 49, the red Babe Ruth, to spend the entire year saving and only buy one card.
You have told me about this idea, and I think it is the most like insane but impressive if you're able to pull it off. You would be like the card monk, like you're the rated rabbi, but you would be like the rated monk, like so disciplined to be able to like
Dude.
starve yourself for an entire year and just you're like, I'm not gonna have any food, no sustenance, just water. I am gonna live off water for an entire year. To me, that's almost unfathomable. I mean, before I came to the hobby, I mean, I went 10 years without being with collecting cards before I came back. But if you're able to pull it off, and well, I hope our friendship doesn't suffer with like, I don't want to like, entice
Nah,
you, but
nah.
oh my gosh, if you're able to do that, I mean, definitely
Like
hats off to you. Jeez.
sports card celibacy.
The nightstand celibacy. Oh my gosh. Is this a good place for us to end? I
Yeah,
want to have
man,
you
I gotta
on.
go to bed.
Yeah,
We'll do
right.
it
It's like
again. We'll
11
do
o'clock.
it again.
Dude, the great curator had me on until like 1 a.m. I streamed until 3 a.m. I'm getting such little sleep. I actually wanted to talk to you about parenting in the hobby and parenting your collection. We did talk about like the way like your family dynamic and all that and the importance of today. Um, the final question I'll have so that we can end is, do you think that do you think that parenting makes you a good parent? Do you think that being in the hobby makes you a good parent? Can I answer while you
Uh,
pause?
yeah, you can answer. You can answer your own question. It's after
Yeah.
11. Anything goes.
So here's the thing. I think that I definitely get distracted and I think about cards a lot. I think about the podcast or the content a lot, and it may distract me from, when someone's asked me something, whether it's my wife or my kids. But I know, and the reason I bring it up, it was like kind of a softball question or toss up to you, but I know in the past in your podcast you have said that you felt like you didn't have enough room for yourself and that it makes you feel alive. Now this is the hobby is where you get to be Dave and not
Yeah.
dad or husband or rabbi. I mean, yes, you're the rated rabbi, but through the hobby, you get to, and I don't think you use the word selfish, but you get to serve yourself and enjoy the hobby. And so for
Yeah.
me, I feel very much the same way. It's like midlife crisis, coming back to the cards. I get to enjoy this. And the great thing is that I'm not just enjoying it with myself, I'm enjoying it with you, my Instagram hobby friends, local card show friends, people who are, I'm getting to know. And we talk about bad actors in the hobby, but I've gotten to meet so many amazing creators, podcasters, dealers, flippers, whole cast of characters. And to me, I do think that the hobby makes me a better parent, even though there are ways that it distracts me. But I think it fulfills me so much.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Good answer.
How about you?
I think that it's been wonderful to have room for just me. Like you said a minute ago, it's really nice to have space where I'm not rabbi, husband, father. I just get a little Dave time. And that was really missing in my life for a long time. I mean, decades that was missing in my life. But I think also, like you said, it also distracts me. There's times where I'm on my phone or I'm thinking about cards or I'm down in Dave's cave doing the hobby that probably takes me away from my family and my kids. It's something, to be really honest with myself. It's not, I'm a work in progress. Yeah, I'm trying to get him into cards, but it hasn't really worked yet. I thought it would just be the perfect bridge, quality time and hobby.
That is the best. If we can get that to work and stick. I appreciate your vulnerability and your honesty. Again, your friendship. It means so much to me.
Thanks, man. Likewise.
So I think this is a good way to end. Rated Rabbi, thank you. Follow him. I'm gonna put in the show notes your podcast and a link and all that.
Thank you.
This is your first, but it won't be your last time on this pod. Gotta have me
Cool.
on yours. I don't know.
Definitely.
In 1984, I was 2 years old, so I'll tell you what a 2-year-old thinks about the 84 game. But yeah, thank you so much for this. This has been truly excellent.
Thanks, Danny.